I wouldn't buy a 2012 Model S because the issues it's going to have and how old the software is and how, those cars get driven, because everybody beats the crap out of electric cars. Because there's instant torque and all that. So they get the crap beaten out of them and the batteries degrade,
Similar concept. Do you think 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years down the line, someone is going to go restore a 2024 Tesla Model 3 Performance that it was owned by Aiden M? Or do we think that's going to go to the scrap heap? Am I doing it again? It seems like you guys want me running this thing every single time.
No, you're bringing the energy. We need that energy.
All right, 24s, you know that?
Yeah.
Test.
But today's a really, or I shouldn't say today, but this specific video is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it seems really basic, but honestly, once you break it down, it gets pretty technical.
Yeah.
Concept for today's video is, will people restore electric cars in the future? Some context, people restore old 911s, people restore old Chevys, old Dodges, old Mercedes, old everything. You have a 60s muscle car, people restore it modern day. Similar concept. Do you think 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years down the line, someone is going to go restore a 2024 Tesla Model 3 Performance that it was owned by Aiden M? Or do we think that's going to go to the scrap heap? I have a strong opinion, obviously. But I feel like we should start with Aiden, because since he owns the car, see kind of where he's at. But let's get this show on the road. My name is Evo.
My name's Trent.
And I'm Aiden.
And you're watching Accelerate.
So the funny thing is you have to look at how electronics are recycled.
They're already getting too technical for me.
Well, unfortunately, this is going to answer your question just straight. I'm about to put your little rain on your parade, pal. Okay.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't either. You're just yapping.
Okay. When you get rid of your iPhone, right, it gets recycled in the tiny little components, like the tiny gold particles and
There's gold in my iPhone?
Of course.
Can I make money off that?
We're about to be rich.
It's over.
The pieces of the phone that use rare earth materials and metals and stuff like that are all recycled. We do that because, stuff like lithium and cobalt and all that stuff is not infinite. It's the same with electric cars. So a lot of times with especially with the batteries and everything like that, batteries go bad over time. That's just what ends up happening. Especially with lithium ion batteries that power mostly everything with power. So I think I don't see a ton of restoring happening for electric cars. They contain so many electrical components that can be recycled and used for new cars, gas or electric, that I think it's actually more advantageous financially for the companies who build the electric cars to, if they ever get their hands on them again, or they recycle them, especially for it's lease vehicles and stuff like that. And I think, of course, there's going to be electric cars that are left to the scrap heap and just sit and gain rust and all this other stuff. Of course, 'cause it's people's property. They can do whatever they want with it. I think there will be a lot of recycling, but if we do restore electric cars, I don't know. I think it's a quite expensive and technical thing. You're not working on an engine here. I mean, those batteries are huge and heavy. I mean, you got to think an electric car weighs a lot, and those batteries are not cheap. And you plug something in wrong, right? It's like, yes, if you do something wrong in a car, you can break it, but typically the car just won't start if you do something wrong when restoring it. You could start a fire, you could blow something up, you could do all these things when messing around with lithium-ion batteries that are meant to power a car. I think it's dangerous for most people who don't know what they're doing, because most people don't know electrical engineering.
Right.
And I think it's expensive. It's
Sure.
super time-consuming. And electric cars just in general are one thing that you have to realize is, just like your old iPhone can't run the newest iOS, right? A lot of times these electric cars rely on very complicated pieces of software, millions of lines of code to properly interact with the systems of the car. Everything's electronic in an electric car. Most electric cars don't even have regular door handles anymore. They're all electronically operated. You push a button, the door opens. If one of those pieces becomes degraded, or there's a bug that wasn't necessarily there, or there's some kind of security problem with the operating system in those cars, parts of the car might not even work. And it's not like you can go get the latest piece of software from Tesla for your 2012 Model S. Look how many people look how many 2012 Model S's do you see driving around? I don't see a bunch of them anymore. I don't see a lot of them.
Why not?
Why? Well, if the people I do see driving them are driving them because they want to look like they have money driving a Model S. That's honestly the people I see driving them, because they're not reliable. Those cars got awful mileage. Their electronics had all kinds of problems. I don't think they have access to the latest software from Tesla, but I could be wrong on that. I've never driven one. But
You wouldn't buy one.
I wouldn't buy a 2012 Model S because the issues it's going to have, and how old the software is, and how those cars get driven, because everybody beats the crap out of electric cars. Because there's instant torque and all that, so they get the crap beaten out of them, and the batteries degrade. You had one, didn't someone buy a Model S that would max charge to 10 miles of range, and then it would just fall apart? You know how hard it would be, and how expensive it is to replace those batteries?
Not necessarily. This is the part where I can come in, because the guy that I knew that bought it, that's what he does. He fixes batteries. He started with Priuses.
Okay, so he has experience in that.
Yeah.
It's not like a one-off person to be
Because you
able
can
to
change
buy
the
that.
cells. It's like a Prius lithium-ion battery, where
Yeah.
it's not one unit.
No,
they're
it's cells. They're cells.
So that's what they did to the Tesla, and they ended up fixing it, and it was able to charge to 80 miles at some point. But
Is that even worth it?
no, it's just about the technology at that point. I mean, if you only work 5 miles away from work to find
Sure,
car,
go
you pay
spend 15 grand on a Model S that's 10 years, almost 13 years old now, and then fine, you have a car that gets 80 miles of range, and you have to charge it every day if you're going to the grocery store. But that's also the thing. Maybe Tesla could get it back to the 200 and something miles of range it had when it was new.
Cost you way too much. To do that.
But it's
You
going to
might as well
cost
go buy a
you
new Model
way too
3.
much. And, your friend does it, right? But it clearly requires some kind of expertise.
Of course, yeah.
Anyone can restore a car. I'm going to say anyone can rebuild an engine.
But for me, besides just the battery, think about when people restore cars nowadays. They're all rusted out.
Yeah.
The internals were beat to shit, broken, corroded. What about all that technology in the car? You're going to need, if people want to restore them in the future, I feel like you're going to need some sort of IT knowledge, basically, to get
You
things running.
need to have a basic engineering degree to be able to mess with those things. Like what he was saying, I don't know anything about computer programming or anything like that. I could take apart an engine on a '87 Camaro IROC, because I'm just picking a random car, but I could take the engine apart on that and put it back together because it's easy.
Yeah.
I know zero about computers. Matisse had to come over and show me how to set everything up on the PC, because I don't know anything about it. I'm being dead serious when I tell you this, because I have no desire to learn. There's no
You could
I don't
learn
need
about computers and everything like that, and the chance of you being able to get a Tesla running that isn't running and has problems is probably pretty low.
I feel like in the future, there's not going to be such thing as project cars when it comes to electric cars, because they're going to be so much more difficult.
Well, who the heck wants to lay on their back in their garage and pull a lithium-ion battery out of the car?
No one.
It's dangerous.
Well, and those electric cars are low. Have you
Yeah.
seen how low a Tesla is? Other than the Model X and the SUVs and the
yeah,
Cybertruck, they're low.
Yeah.
Which means you have to have special equipment like a lift to
Yeah.
even get them. And Tesla's whole thing, and that a lot of people have this is why insurance companies that are not Tesla insurance are very expensive for Teslas, is because Tesla doesn't really like letting other shops
Mess with their
handle their stuff. Tesla, if you wreck your car, I believe it goes back to Tesla to get fixed.
yeah. Well, the shop is right there.
Yeah.
Right, there's a Tesla service center right around the corner, but it goes back to Tesla to get fixed, because Tesla doesn't want you touching or other people touching stuff on their cars. But that leads to high cost because they control the parts market.
Yeah.
So a lot of times for if you go let's say you need a bumper for a Mustang, multiple people will make a Mustang bumper, right? That will fit.
Or you can't just go to some junkyard basically and
Go to
take
junkyard
scraps.
one, yeah.
Or you go
I've
take one out
never
of the
seen an
scrap.
electric car at a junkyard. Even disregard,
They're
not even
I thought,
just
yeah,
just to put in a
it's a-
junkyard.
not even just Tesla, but the Nissan Leaf, which are older now, like older Model
I
S's.
think they get recycled.
I think
They
it's
have to, because at the junkyard when I go to get parts, I mean, you see a bunch of cars just laying out there, oils everywhere. And
it's such a hazard to have. I think electric
Yeah.
cars laying out there.
The
It's a fire hazard.
It's a fire hazard. It's a chemical hazard because if those
Mhm.
lithium-ion batteries break,
Yeah.
it's dangerous.
And I'm like, and those cars catch on fire. You just can't put them out like normal. Like it's a much more difficult thing to
Like,
put out.
If you okay, so the lithium-ion battery, it's not liquid inside. It's
Mhm.
this like wrap of like lithium
Yeah.
that goes around a cathode, I think. I don't know. I don't know the technicals of it, but if that stuff gets exposed, that can catch fire like that. It just needs the right chemical or the right thing touching the lithium, and it will explode.
They're not meant for regular people.
Actually,
to work
pretty
on them.
sure it's water.
No.
I'm pretty sure if even water touches lithium,
I believe
it'll
that. I mean,
explode.
these are just not meant for people to work on. I mean, back in the day, you used to buy a car, they'd put like a how to tune your carburetor in the glove box.
They give you a whole ass toolkit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays, I mean, you don't.
It's
Really
a basic
you know.
ass toolkit, but
Yeah. Nowadays, you don't really get much anymore. I mean, with like that's why my cars that are older are still running, like my E55, because there's aftermarket support on it and everything, and you could go out and buy stuff for these cars because Mercedes, most stuff is NLA, no longer available.
Right.
yeah.
But it's like with Tesla, it's like, so what are we doing with these Model 3s? Are they like the K cars from Chrysler in the 80s where they're just throwaway cars, like they're designed to be driven for 3 years and then throw them away? Or like
I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think of course people get tons of use. I mean, people still drive around the first year Model 3s,
Right.
2018 Model 3s, which is fine. I mean, the cars run perfectly fine. They degrade over time just like any battery does because that's just what happens with lithium-ion batteries. But I think on top of that, there's a lot of research going into new battery solutions that don't use cobalt and lithium that actually have a prolonged lifetime. So it might become that in the future, electric cars are around for a lot longer than they are now, just because I think they're working on battery technology that keeps them around. But still, if you look at any of the cars today, look at my car. In 10 years, that thing probably won't even exist. It'll probably be dismantled and recycled because it's not going to sit in a junkyard, or someone's going to be driving it, and it's just going to be like any other 10-year-old car. But restoring it from a point to where it's not drivable to a point to where it is drivable,
Mhm.
it'll never happen.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that you're going to take an electric car home, which you can't even get into neutral
Yeah.
without power. So you're not going to tell me that you're going to go pay some guy to flatbed move your electric car, because if you move it while it's there, like if you move it and drive, which happens to a lot of Teslas that die on the side of the road. That's why
Mhm.
they have to flatbed move them. But you'll recharge the battery as it's moving because you're forcing the wheels to turn. So it can mess with the battery. So you have to flatbed them. And then you're going to take it to your house, stick it on that $5,000 hydraulic lift, drop the battery cells out from it, and then go buy new ones, reinstall it, and hope to God that the software works properly on the car. Have you ever unplugged a computer while it's running and then turned it back on and it's all freaking out because like everything's shut down improperly? What do you think is going to happen to a car that hasn't been plugged in or charged for years? Like there really isn't an easy way to restore it. It's not like you're going and buying a 90s car that just needs an engine rebuild where you can look up online a manual about how to rebuild an engine, go buy some parts at AutoZone, and then just cross your fingers and rebuild it and stick it back in and hope it fires up. Like, that's not how it works.
I think that's the only thing that kind of sucks about. I mean, not the only thing. I'm not a big fan of electric cars in general, but I think that's what really sucks is that it's cool nowadays seeing classic muscle cars, just any classic cars that haven't been rebuilt. I was like, we just won't get to see. I don't think we'll get to see that unless a lot of things change.
What about all the projects that people are converting to electric? Like you see
I
these old
think-
Beetles that are running around on like lithium batteries and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I never said it was impossible. Those people spend a lot of time and money to do that.
It's going to be very rare.
It's
that you'll
rare that it happens. I think it's on social media, so it looks like it's a lot more common, but it's very rare. And it does cost a lot to go buy lithium batteries and controllers and ECUs that work and are able to distribute. You got to think about ECUs for most cars handle things like the engine operations, everything like that, timing, all that. That's not at all how an ECU for an electric car works. They're completely different. And I'm not even sure it's called an ECU in an electric car. It might just be the internal car's operating system. Because the entire car's a computer with wheels. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So it's a lot different. It's not like you can just go plug in your laptop and reprogram and flash an ECU. It's like it's a whole different ball game. So
I think what we'll end up seeing more is I can see people restoring it, throwing in an actual combustion engine, but at that point it's not an electric car anymore, and it's something completely different.
Yeah.
So you can't really say they restored
and
an
that
electric
doesn't
car.
count as restoring an electric car.
That's a Restomod.
Yeah, it's a Restomod or something like that. I mean, there was at SEMA that V8 Model 3.
That thing was sick.
That thing was so cool. But that wasn't a rebuild. That or like a restore. It was a conversion.
Yeah, so
That's all it was.
I think I almost feel like that's the closest thing you're gonna get to seeing basically old
yeah.
Teslas or old electric shells on the road.
Like Ford made the Ford Focus EV way back in 2000.
Energy
and,
one?
Like,
Yeah.
gosh, it was so long ago. Back when the Focus was still around. I don't think I've ever seen one in real life.
They're terrible cars.
Oh, they're terrible and they have
They're
horrible
terrible.
range. But have you ever seen
Yeah,
one
no.
in? I've never seen
I
one in
have
real
not.
life.
Nope.
But if they were truly restorable
Mhm.
and could be salvaged for anything other than their parts, then they would be around.
Yeah, they're
not around.
not good cars at all. They have horrible issues.
Any Ford Focus has horrible issues, but
I think there's a reason why they stopped building them here,
Yeah.
or at least I don't know if they stopped building them altogether or just
No, they still
here.
build them in Europe and everything. It's just the U.S.
Yeah.
No, they still build them in Europe, right? Yeah, plenty of them.
It's just popular over there.
I just
I don't know. I think it's just really how I guess you can. It just depends on how much money you have and how technical you are and the equipment that you have. But I don't see it.
it's
I'm
gonna be a
sorry.
very rare thing. I mean, even nowadays, classic cars aren't restored in mass amounts. So
And the closest thing, to be honest with you, to getting a restore done on a vehicle for an electric car is to recycle it. It's the best thing for the environment. It's the best thing for the price of electric cars and not having them skyrocket due to the cost of resources and parts to build those cars. I think the best thing you can do is recycle an electric car if you're not going to.
it's just gonna suck because if you really like a certain generation of an
Yeah,
electric
true.
car, you get it now or you're shit out of luck. Yeah.
I think that's the future, though. We still see, of course, 10-year-old electric cars sitting on the market today. It's just like, the ones that aren't on the road. You
Yeah.
don't see them at all.
Yeah.
Old ones you don't see. Like old first gen
The
Model
Lotus
S's.
style ones.
Oh yeah, the Lotus. Yeah, like roadsters. Now there weren't a bunch of them built,
Yeah, no.
but I've never seen one in real life.
I've
And
seen ones.
I rarely see first gen Model S's anymore. Or because the first gen Model X, the design of the Model X hasn't changed much other than on the inside, so I wouldn't know. But I think electric cars are just gonna end up being kind of like how we recycle phones and iPads and
Yeah,
computers and stuff like
most
that.
likely. You got any other thoughts on that, Evo?
No, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to talk about. It's just very different compared to
Yeah,
back in the
Very
old
strange.
days.
you're not gonna find one in a junkyard unless you want to. Most
And if
likely
you do-
start a fire.
And if you do find one in a junkyard, I wouldn't even touch it. Don't even.
Don't even get near
Don't-
it because you don't know why it's there, and you don't know if someone has gone in there and messed with the batteries or what. Because those things will catch fire like that if the batteries are tampered with. I'm telling you, water and lithium will start a fire. That's all it takes.
Yeah, I think these are just things people don't honestly think about that much when they're buying an electric car. Granted, I'm not thinking about restoring my car when I go buy it, so I don't blame
True.
them. But
True.
I feel like it's almost something you do need to think about, like how long am I going to have this car, and am I able to fix it pretty easily?
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty,
that's it.
gentlemen.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you guys in the next episode.